A third woman has come forward and accused New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo of unwanted advances. Previously, two other women, former staffers, had alleged that he had sexually harassed them. Now, Anna Ruch, a 33-year-old, has shared her experience of a meeting with Cuomo for the first time. This happened during a wedding in 2019 where he allegedly touched her and asked if he could kiss her, and the New York Times reported the details. They write that the governor was working the room after toasting the newlyweds at this wedding. And when he came upon Anna, she thanked him for his kind words about her friends. But what happened next instantly unsettled her. Cuomo put his hand on her bare lower back, okay? But I would argue what followed that makes it crystal clear what he was trying to do based on her allegations, right? These are all allegations. When she removed his hand from her own, she recalled the governor remarked that she seemed aggressive and placed his hands on her cheeks. He asked if he could kiss her loudly enough for a friend standing nearby to hear. She was bewildered by what he said and then pulled away as the governor drew closer. And then she gave this quote to the Times saying, "I was so confused and shocked and embarrassed. I turned my head away and didn't have words in that moment." And a friend of hers, by the way, has corroborated the allegations. And this image has been making its rounds online. It shows the moment that it happened. So there's some corroboration right there for you. So Francesca, again, this is the third woman who's come out with allegations against him. And then aside from that, he had already been embroiled in a pretty big scandal regarding the cover up of mass coronavirus deaths in nursing homes that occurred due to a decision that he made in forcing these nursing homes to readmit elderly coronavirus patients who were still recovering in the hospital. He did that to open up space for beds in hospitals, which had been underfunded because of his own actions. So the lack of beds could be attributed to him, and then him forcing coronavirus patients to be readmitted to these nursing homes led to the spread of the virus in the nursing homes, and that led to deaths, which he covered up. So he's just surrounded by scandal, and the big question has been, well, what should be done? There are some New York state lawmakers who are calling for him to step down. What do you think should happen?
I mean, it is just interesting. Like rarely, it always leads here. Whenever there's sort of a corrupt legacy dynasty politician, hello guy he tried to create his own career against, like Donald Trump. You you scratch the surface of someone who like gets by on bullying, who has all these corruption scandals, and it turns out they treat women in their immediate sphere, whether women they're working with or at a wedding, with the same kind of disregard, the same bullying, the same strongman, disgusting tactics that they do politics, right? I mean, there is a correlation, and I'm not saying that like perfectly non-sexual harassers aren't also evil. They can't also have their bad political tendencies, but there's a link here. There's very much a link of how you treat your staffers, how you treat specifically women, and like let's keep on going. How you treat anybody, right? Will then indicate how you're going to be politically, and it's disgusting on all levels. It is totally the tip of the iceberg. I mean, can you imagine the number of stories? And good for this woman, Anna, to come forward like. It didn't seem like it's not a huge deal, right? She wasn't a staffer, it was just one incident, but it made her really uncomfortable, and good for her for having the bravery to speak out and say, look, here's the evidence, look at my pained face. It was clear that he was doing something that was unwanted, and standing with the other women who actually were staffers who probably feel, although they shouldn't, pretty alone, right? And so I just think hats off to her, and so I'm really glad. And whether he should resign or not, I mean, the guy should have been resigned. The guy should have lost his primary multiple times by now, but he's got a stranglehold on New York politics and bullies the state assembly to get what he wants.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I want to name the other women who were brave enough to come forward. We have covered their stories as well if you want to go back and watch those clips from our archives. But the former staffers include Charlotte Bennett, who was a health policy advisor for Cuomo up until November. And then the first woman who came forward was Lindsay Boyland, who worked as the deputy secretary for economic development and a special advisor to the governor. They all have very similar stories in, Cuomo, a man in a position of power, they're essentially their boss, making these advances and making them uncomfortable, and that, that power dynamic makes the situation even worse because the pressure, it's about your livelihood, right? And so once you have someone who has that kind of power over you make these types of advances, you're kind of terrified to say no because there might be retaliation. Now, there hasn't been any allegations of retaliation or anything like that, but you can understand why the women would be uncomfortable. And Francesca, what you said, I just want to really highlight because it's so important. Cuomo tried to differentiate himself from Donald Trump in the beginning of the pandemic. And he got an Emmy for his coronavirus briefings, glowing magazine covers, it's Cuomo's moment, making him out to be some sort of hero. The hashtag Cuomosexual was trending for a while because people saw him as this competent leader. And they saw him as this substitute for the incompetence that we saw with Donald Trump. But you're absolutely right. You scratch beneath the surface, and this happens with a lot of political issues. You see a lot of similarities when it comes to incompetence, corruption, all the political issues, all of the complaints that we've had in regard to Republicans and yes, Donald Trump can definitely apply to Democratic lawmakers as well. That's not to say that they're all the same, but it is to say that in cases like this, they're pretty freaking similar.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.